Coming up on today's Locked On Dodgers, Dave Roberts gets his extension, Cody Bellinger struggling, and a few standouts from the spring. That's what's on tap, so make sure to keep it Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day every day. Remember, we are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. And it's just easy enough to subscribe in all those places and never miss a day because we're not going to. If this is your first time watching or listening, I'm Vince Samperio, Chavez Green Fiends. I'll be rolling solo today. My usual co-host, Jeff Snider, Baseball Essential, will be back tomorrow. But Jeff and I are lifelong Dodger fans just like you. And we've also spent time covering the team in the press box and the locker room. But we're not quite insiders. We're just here to bring you the smart fans perspective on our boys in blue every single weekday morning. So go ahead and subscribe wherever you listen, and let's talk some Dodgers. All right. So long weekend, the weekends always feel long since we record on Thursday, and then this gets recorded on Sunday. But the big news out of the weekend in terms of actual hard news was Dave Roberts got a 3-year extension. He will if as long as everything goes right, he'll be Dodgers manager through at least the end of the 2025 season. We know that this was coming. We knew that they were going to give him the extension. They're working on it. They mentioned it. I saw some people getting a little bit or not restless, but a little bit saying like, why isn't it done yet? Blah blah blah. They both want it. But Roberts said, they had other things to get done. They had other priorities this offseason. Obviously, with the lockout, it changed things a little bit. But they had to get other things done. And now that all that free agency stuff was done, they got Roberts' deal done. And, I haven't seen any money or anything about it. But either way, I'm sure Roberts is happy. And it's a good thing for the Dodgers, despite what some fans might be saying on social media. Dave Roberts is the right guy for the Dodgers, for the, not just for this Dodgers team, but just the way the Dodgers operate now. As we've said, yes, the in-game decisions, there's been some in-game decisions that have been head scratching. There's been some in-game decisions that just didn't work out because, the players didn't do their job, and maybe Dave Roberts didn't put some people in their best, the best way to succeed. But either way, Roberts controls a locker room and controls the team and has to deal with realistically playing players or sitting players that should be maybe starting in other places. So until the day we see something come out where someone doesn't like Dave Roberts, where someone there's a leak about some team info or something going on in the locker room, Dave Roberts has complete control of that locker room, and there hasn't been any issues. The communication always seems to be there, and that's just the way it goes. This is the guy that the Dodgers need. We've seen teams that are, I bring it up before, but I'll bring it up again. The Padres of last year, they had they didn't have much depth, but they did have a solid team. They faltered down the stretch. We saw Machado and Tatis have some issues. We saw, Hosmer speaking to the media about it. We saw some reports of that Tatis wasn't that well liked and blah, 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 and all this other stuff. And while that wasn't, a correlation between playing time or anything like what the Dodgers could happen, it also is a matter of, Dave Roberts. I would imagine if there's been any issues in the past 5 years, he's been able to address it and he's been able to handle it how he sees fit and without getting it out there or nipping it in the bud, wherever the case is. We haven't seen anything. And even with different situations of the year, guys in playing time or platoons or whatever the case is. We haven't seen anything, and that's where Dave Roberts really shines. In terms of the deal, like I said, 3-year extension on top of this 2022 season that he already had. So keeping him around through at least 2025, I think he'll be he'd be at 10 years after this deal, which would, be pretty cool. And yeah, there's not much else to say. It's the right move for the Dodgers, and realistically, if they do need to move on from him, this extension doesn't prevent that. We've seen teams hire coaches and fire them before, and it's gonna continue to happen probably for other teams, probably not for the Dodgers. But as long as Dave Roberts continues his ways, and as long as the Dodgers keep winning, and there's no hiccups, then I expect Dave Roberts to be the manager of this team, maybe for as long as he wants. As long as he feels fit. And he did mention the pressures that come with it, and things of that nature. And he said that he didn't know what he was walking into when he became the Dodgers. Like when he came to the Dodgers, like he said, pressure, expectations, all that kind of stuff. But he said that's what you play for, what you coach for. That's a thing that he says he likes to embrace. So he wouldn't change a thing. And if he already guaranteed the 2022 World Series, so if he can deliver on that promise, and the rest of the team can help him out, then we're going to be in a good spot in terms of the Dodgers. So there's not much else to say. We've talked about this at length before. Good move. Congrats to Dave Roberts. And one guy that he's advocating for this spring that'll turn it around is Cody Bellinger. But Cody Bellinger has not had a great spring so far. We're going to talk about that. But first, talk about BetOnline. College basketball tournament is upon us. Final Four is here, and it will determine this year's national champion. BetOnline.net, your number one source for all those betting needs and sports info. Everything you need about the tournament, for all the latest odds, contests, player props, you name it, whatever it is, BetOnline.net has you covered. They remain the best spot for all your sports developments, including podcasts, reviews for all the leagues this season. They got it all at BetOnline.net, and it's not just basketball. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information needs, including live betting and favorite Vegas casino games. So head to the website on your laptop, mobile device today. Learn more about the trends, learn more about the action, and get in on it. BetOnline, where the game starts. I want to thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day every day. Check out Locked On MLB Prospects with host Lindsey Crosby. Lindsey Crosby knows his prospects, and he's going deep on the MLB stars of tomorrow. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. All right, next talking point is Cody Bellinger. And Cody Bellinger, so, I'll admit that when I watch spring games, it's, they're usually in the middle of the day. I'm working, so my 100% focus isn't on the game, to hear a name that I want to watch or want to see, or, a guy on the mound I want to see, or a guy at the plate I want to see. And I admit I haven't been 100% looking at Cody Bellinger's at bats so far this spring, and I didn't realize how bad he had been in terms of results. After Saturday's game, where Cody went 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts, he was sitting at 14 strikeouts and 19 at bats, which is not good. But there is confidence, which I would hope there is, among Cody Bellinger, among Dave Roberts, and among the people, I guess, that matter. There might not be the same confidence from fans at the moment, or at least the majority of fans. But Cody Bellinger, it's one of those things. You're coming off a really bad year, and then you had a really good postseason. And it's a matter of you've already been inconsistent in your career. 2017 came up, rookie of the year. 2018, not so great, got platooned by the end of the year. 2019, MVP. 2020, year, but, World Series champ. 2021, very bad regular season, very good postseason. And now you're coming in healthy, and you just, I don't know if he knows what he wants to do, and that's the big issue with Cody Bellinger so far. Is we've seen a few different stances, a few different hand placements, a few different bat placements. We've seen, throughout the spring so far, just tinkering. The one guy that we used to see tinker like that a lot was Jock Peterson, but for the most part, Jock was pretty consistent in what he gave you. He's going to hit home runs, and he's going to get on base with walks. but his average is not going to be that great. With Cody Bellinger, I mean, yeah, you get the home runs. The average is going to be a little bit better than what Jock gave you, at least initially. Although, not so sure now. And I think it's just a matter of him kind of figuring out what kind of hitter he wants to be. Does he want to be a power hitter? Does he want to be a good hitter? I don't know if he can coexist in both of those worlds. Do you want to have that big whip swing that you used to have and, hit 30, 25, 30, 35 home runs, but hit around 200 and strike out around 200 times? Maybe, that's helpful to a team, at least in these days. Or do you want to be a guy that, has this choked up swing that you have, trying to hit the ball off fields, maybe lacking a little bit of power, but you're going to, come through a little bit more often at the plate? Also beneficial, also helpful. But I think he's got to figure it out, and he's working through it, obviously. And we've said before, spring training results don't matter, but 14 strikeouts and 19 at bats, that matters a little bit. It's not just a matter of, if he had flew out 14 times in 19 at bats, you're not as concerned because at least he's making contact. Where here, you're messing with your swing, you're tinkering with things, and then you're not making contact. And it's like, maybe stick to one thing and focus on making contact. And obviously Cody Bellinger, he said he's getting his punchies out of the way in the spring. Dave Roberts said, I think he'll be the first to tell you it wasn't good, which is talking about Saturday when he struck out 4 times. He said that was the first night I felt things sped up on him. And yeah, I mean, it definitely felt like I think he went down looking 2 or 3 times of those 4 times, and that's also a sign of maybe being in your head, thinking too much, and you're, worried about too many other things, and now you're getting caught off guard with some of these pitches, and it's just, I don't know what to tell you. I'm not in Cody Bellinger's head. I'm not the ones working with him. I'm not, out there coaching, but they did ask him with the late season success in 2021, why did he feel the need to change his mechanics again? And he said, I think there's a happy medium involved. My shoulder and body are feeling stronger than they did in the postseason. I'm feeling more comfortable. I've had a lot of success in the past. It's all about finding that approach. And he says that's what spring training's about. You don't want to do what he's doing, but he feels better than what the stat sheet is showing. He says that he's getting close. Now, Dave Roberts says there is such a thing as too many mechanics, that he's working hard with the hitting guys. But when you get out to a game, go out there and compete, try to be a good hitter. And he said, I'm glad at spring training, some guys ramp up earlier than other guys. Now, realistically, he could come out and strike out 30 times in 40 at bats this spring. And then the regular season starts and he could be hitting 400 through the first month. Is it realistic? Maybe not, but it's possible. But I do think, that happy medium he's trying to find is escaping him at the moment, obviously. And, it's a matter of kind of figure it out. I mean, it's hard for him because he has, 2 more years and then he's a free agent. And obviously you want that big payday. Yes, he's been, he has the rookie of the year. He has the MVP. He's made decent money. He's making $17 million this year, but that $100 million multi-year contract payday is out there in his reach, but he has to go get it. I'm sure he's in his head a little bit about that. He's in his head about how bad he was last year. He's in his head about, now that he's not making contact in the spring. And, at the end of the day, these players are human and they do, it is a mental game. Baseball is a game of failure. But when you're failing a little bit more than everybody else, then, you don't necessarily feel good about it. And you maybe want to change things and it makes you want to try something else. And, hey, you know what, maybe this is. And I do think that this is where the spring training cut in half is not going to help, because I think he's trying to hurry up and figure it out before the season. And he's not maybe giving certain things enough time or enough trial to, be into it. And that's, something that he has to deal with, obviously. But I think the Dodgers could maybe help him out a little bit and say, you know what, let's stick to one thing. And with that one thing, let's try to make contact with the ball. Whether it's flat bat, whether it's bat up, whether it's knee bend, whether it's no knee bend, whether it's one long swing, whether it's choking up in a shorter swing, whatever the case is, I think he just needs to pick one and stick with it. And maybe he has, but from what we've seen, there's been differences when he comes to the plate where, bat placement, hand placement, type of swing, choking up, not choking up. I think maybe choking up has been the one thing he has been consistent with this spring, but everything else has kind of changed a little bit. And I think he's trying to figure it all out before the regular season. And, now that we're just over a week away from that regular season, I feel like, you got to kind of pick one and stick with it. And the big thing for the Dodgers is that they don't need Cody Bellinger necessarily to be MVP. They have guys that are filling roles now. They have Trey Turner, they have Mookie Betts, they have Freddie Freeman. They have 3 MVP candidates right there. You slide down another tier, you got Max Muncy, you got Justin Turner, you got Will Smith. Guys that, in theory, could receive MVP votes this year if they play to their potential. And then you got, A.J. Pollock and Chris Taylor, who were good last year and will probably continue to be good enough and, not too worried about them. And then you got Cody Bellinger, and he's giving you Gold Glove defense in center field. We know that. That hasn't changed anything. He's been able to continue to give you that defense. But they don't need him to hit 300 with 45 home runs. Would that be nice? Oh, yeah, that would be sweet, awesome, amazing. But they don't need that from him. And I think he's realized that part, but he's still obviously trying to figure it out for himself. He's won an MVP 3 years ago. He was Rookie of the Year 5 years ago. Like, he knows it's in there, and it's just a matter of getting out of your own head, figuring yourself out, finding your body, figuring out your body, figuring everything else out, and sticking with it. And I think that's maybe what the hardest thing is for him, is sticking with it even when he struggles, because this is a guy that realistically probably hasn't struggled most of his life in baseball. Growing up, I'm sure he's one of the best players as a kid. I'm sure he was one of the best players in high school. Obviously, he was, because he got taken in the 4th round by the Dodgers. And, in the minor leagues, he did pretty well. Obviously, the average was never always there, but the power and everything else came from pretty early on. And even though he didn't have that power in high school, but he developed it here with the Dodgers in the farm system. But I think he's got to trust himself as well. I don't know if he trusts himself right now in terms of just clearing your head and, make it simple. See the ball, hit the ball. I'm not going to say that's as easy as it can be, because I've never stepped in the plate against major league pitching, especially when guys that know you now for a while and know they can throw in certain areas and you're probably not going to hit it, and they're going to, test that. But I think he's got to figure out ways to maybe simplify some things simplify some things. And, like I said, stick with one thing. So, he's working on it. He's got like 10 days, 11 days for opening day. Hopefully he figures it out, and hopefully he starts making contact. The contact will come. We saw him last year in the postseason making contact. He had the 1 home run against the Braves, but other than that, didn't show too much power, but was getting on base, started stealing more bases, started being a guy that you can count on, and obviously had the game-winning hit against the Giants in the NLDS. He had the big game-tying home run against the Braves in the NLCS. So, regardless of everything, he's always had clutch moments in the postseason, but he needs to maybe bring that mentality to the regular season. Maybe every day is a postseason for you. Maybe every day is a World Series for you. But whatever it is, I'm going to put some trust in the coaching staff and in Cody Bellinger, and I'm not going to give up on him. I'm going to expect him to, not be an MVP maybe anymore, but expect him to be a guy that's very serviceable on offense with Gold Glove defense, and that's still a player that can, be a guy in this league, obviously, and be a potential all-star. So good luck to Cody Bellinger. I'm rooting for you, obviously, and we're all rooting for you. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about just some news and notes from over the weekend. First, talk about Built Bar. Y'all love Built Bar. Built Bars are the best tasting protein bars. Built Puffs are the first ever protein-infused marshmallow, and they're both available at Built.com. They're both good for you. They're both high in protein. They're both low in calories, low in sugar, low in carbs. high protein, high fiber. They are both there for you if you are trying to gain weight, if you're trying to lose weight, if you're trying to build muscle, if you're trying to tone up, if you're trying to get the gains, if you're trying to cut. Whatever you're looking for, Built Bar's there. It's also there if you just need a substitute for dessert. You're like, you know what, that this chocolate cake not gonna work for me. It's not helping out my waistband. But let me have a Built Bar instead, and it can help you out for that too. So Built Bars are great. They're all covered in chocolate. They have a bunch of different flavors. They're always adding flavors. You can get a mix box and try a bunch of flavors, whatever you want. So go to built.com, check it all out. Use the promo code LOCK15. You can get 15% off your order. That's promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com. All right, let's close out. Just some notes from over the weekend. The Dodgers have started cutting down rosters. No surprises yet. The spring roster is down to 45. They've been optioning guys, reassigning guys to minor league camp, whatever the case is. Um, Dave Roberts did say that Andrew Heaney will get a start in the first rotation turn. Andrew Heaney has not looked great this spring so far, but as we've said before, we're not sure entirely what he's working on. So, maybe there's more in there for him to improve on, or maybe he's working on certain things, and in the regular season he's going to use it and put it all together. Dave Roberts said that Tony Gonson's the leading guy right now to be the Dodgers' fifth starter, and that he's talked to Tyler Anderson about being a piggyback bulk arm when needed, and then mentioned David Price isn't built up right now. The David Price thing is interesting. He's not built up. I don't, a 28-man roster, they can carry as many pitchers as they want. Is David Price a guy you carry? Is he somebody that you want to have out of your bullpen to give you 1 inning, 2 innings, whatever he's built up to? I don't know. At least with the 28-man roster, yeah, I can say yes a little bit more definitively, just because you got extra room to play with if you want. But when it gets down to the 26-man, I'm not sure. And one of the reasons I'm not sure is because Victor Gonzalez is looking good again. Victor Gonzalez has had 2 appearances so far this spring, 2 innings. He struck out 4 of the 6 batters he's faced. And he's a guy that we know has had success in this league before. He was a big reason they won it all in 2020. Struggled a little bit last year, didn't get to pitch in the postseason. They have a few other lefties that kind of stepped up and were part of it, but he's still a guy where, whatever he did this offseason to get into shape and whatever he did in terms of his throwing mechanics or whatever that it was that was bothering him last year, he's looked good so far in the spring. Obviously, he has an option, I would imagine. So probably one more option year. So, it's a little bit easier, I guess, to keep him down at the start and then bring him up when you need him. But, he's a guy that's making it hard for the Dodgers to hang on to a guy like David Price. Once you start breaking down, the roster and trying to figure out, who's going to be where. But that's they still got some time, and they'll have at least a month with extra guys to kind of figure that part out. One thing, our friend of the show, Keith Law, was out in the backfields of Cactus League this weekend, and he wrote up about Maddox Bruns, who was the Dodgers' first round pick last year in 2021. And he had nothing but good things to say about him. He said he showed the kind of pure stuff that might make teams question why he wasn't the first high school pitcher off the board. He saw him against the White Sox in a low A game on Friday. He said he was around 94, 96 with a plus curveball and had a tight 2 plane break. And then he also showed a plus changeup and a slider that might be above average too. Now, obviously, this is very early in the development for Maddox Bruns, but if he's a guy that can throw a fastball and mid 90s with a curveball and a changeup and a slider, that's something to get excited about. He said left-handed batters had no chance against him, and right-handers didn't fare a lot better. Maddox Bruns has had trouble throwing strikes in the past. From what Keith Law saw, I didn't have trouble with that this time. Obviously that was one game that he saw, but it's a good sign that the Dodgers, have a guy that has potential like that, who's only 19 years old. Still figuring out, probably still filling out his body a little bit. Maybe he can ramp that up to 96, 97 with all those other pitches. And even if he can just get two of those other pitches to be above average, then that's a major league starter right there. So exciting stuff in terms of Keith Law. He's seen a lot of people's, and he knows how to you know he's a guy that, like I said, seen a lot more young pitchers than we have, and done a lot more evaluating than maybe any of us have. And is Maddox Bruns going to be the next Hayden Kershaw? We're not going to say that, but you know, it's a good start to see. It's better than saying, "Oh, I saw Max Bruns and he walked 10 guys." So that's where we're at on that. What else happened this weekend? Just nothing crazy. We had the Cody Bellinger stuff. We saw guys start getting turned down. Chris Taylor's been able to uh, get closer to being out there in the field, or playing in the outfield at least. Dave Roberts wasn't concerned about him having to build up stamina or anything like that. Mookie Betts was in the lineup, had a few hits this weekend, looking good. So it's the Dodgers are whatever. The spring, they're not doing amazing, but they have shown different things in different areas, and they have they put out a strong lineup the other day that was got you excited for opening day. So it's a matter of what they can do. Edwin Rios is still looking good. Miguel Vargas has continued to look good. He had his playing time's going down because he's probably done for the spring, but he's still a guy that you get excited about. Gavin Lux has been playing left field. Haven't seen anything that would make me wonder if he cannot play left field. But he's going to continue to get work out there and just add to his value if he's a guy that can play center, play left, play second, play short. I'm not sure if they worked him at third base, but that's another place they could use him. So there's a lot to be excited about. We're getting close to the season here. It's March 20th or 8th as you're listening to this. April 7th is opening day. We're just over a week away. So the Dodgers will continue to play out the spring. And we'll continue to watch. But it's now we're getting close enough to where all I'm ready for is opening day and seeing what the Dodgers are going to bring in Colorado. So that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank y'all for listening. Thanks for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day every day. We'll be back tomorrow talking more about spring, maybe getting into a couple more guys that are on the roster bubble and seeing the bigger picture when it comes to the opening day roster. Make your second listen of the day Locked On MLB with Paul Francis Sullivan, a.k.a. Sully. He brings his unique perspective on the major leagues past and present. He's free and available wherever you get podcasts. If you want to find us beyond the podcast, beyond Locked On Dodgers, beyond YouTube, beyond where you find your podcast, check us out on social media, Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Dodgers. Jeff is on Twitter at Snider. I'm Evan Samperio. DMs are open on all those accounts. You can reach us there. You can reach us via email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or you can reach us via voicemail text at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be with us when you get in your car or if you're at home. Tell your smart device, play podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.